Hi, my name is Allison Onsmeyer, and this is my EDL 853 case study when a student's rights are wronged. For Section 1, a quick summary, Nottingham High School is a central hub for the community of Dover, and it hosts 3,200 students. It was built in the early 1950s and is currently going under a major reconstruction project to get in code with state and federal terms to accommodate individuals with disabilities. There are a lack of funds, so this means that a quarter of the building is remaining as is. Dr. Harvey is the acting superintendent, and they have a very supportive community. Miguel Hernandez moved to participate in the Nottingham High School football program and is a very talented quarterback. During the semifinals game, he was injured and as a result is paralyzed waist down. Returning to Miguel, or for Miguel returning to Nottingham High School, there was an appointment with a counselor. The counselor did say that he would be permitted back when the physician cleared Miguel. Miguel would at that point be using a wheelchair, and at that time, no other accommodations were seen to be needed. At his first day back at Nottingham High School, there was a meeting with the counselor and Miguel, and this was to note a schedule change because the biology classroom is not wheelchair accessible. Miguel was changed to another science, but this may not qualify him for college. At that point, Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez were upset, and so they wanted a meeting with the principal. So there was one set where both parents were in attendance. Mrs. Hernandez demanded for Miguel to be readmitted and questioned why they were not informed of the schedule change, and stated that the biology class was needed for college. At that time, Mr. Hernandez brought in an attorney, Howard Carey, and he stated the fact that Nottingham High School was not in compliance with the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Section 1 of the problem identification. The problem in this situation is the fact that Nottingham High School infringed upon Miguel's rights when they changed his schedule and did not let him remain in the biology class. According to Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, it is prohibited to discriminate against disability in programs and activities. Students with disabilities also have the right to a free and appropriate education under IDEA. Section 2, as far as legal and ethical issues, the first one would be that Nottingham High School is not in compliance with Section 504 due to the fact that Miguel does not have access to a classroom and is being denied admission because he uses a wheelchair. Nottingham High School is also not in compliance with the IDEA and the FAPE law, as Miguel is not receiving an education that is appropriate. He needs this biology course to work towards being admitted to college, and he has been removed from the course. They are also not complying with the ADA because they are discriminating against Miguel by not allowing him to stay in the biology course, but instead removing him because the classroom is not wheelchair accessible. As for the ethical issue, it is unethical to change a student out of a course just because the classroom is not wheelchair accessible. All of the other students who were in the class got to stay in the class, so why shouldn't Miguel? To synthesize these findings, I have found that Miguel's rights have been infringed upon by Nottingham High School's lack of accessibility and not being in compliance with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as well as IDEA and FAPE. Section 3, synthesize the facts about the people. What I know that Miguel Hernandez is a sophomore who has been paralyzed waist down from a football injury. He currently uses a wheelchair. He was also taken out of biology because the classroom is not accessible to him, and he would like to take biology to get into college. Ms. Gussman is the current counselor of Nottingham High School. She had a meeting with the parents prior to Miguel's return and no mention of a schedule change. She did meet with Miguel the first day back and told him she was changing his schedule. Myself, Mrs. Clanton, the principal, recognized Miguel at an assembly upon his return and was not aware that Ms. Gussman changed Miguel's schedule. The parents at that time then called to set up a meeting. Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez, which are Miguel's parents, met with Ms. Gussman prior to Miguel's return and noted the wheelchair as accommodations needed. They were also upset about the change in schedule and Miguel being denied access to the biology course. They set up a meeting with Mrs. Clanton. We also know Mr. Howard Carey, who is Miguel's attorney, and stated that the high school, was not in compliance with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. On with Section 3, synthesizing the facts based upon the place and the program of what I know. As far as the place, it is located in Dover. It has a student population of 3,200. The school was built in the early 1950s. It is currently under construction to be in compliance with state and federal laws. There is a lack of funding, which has caused a quarter of the building to be left alone. The biology room is not accessible for students who use wheelchairs. As for the program, Nottingham High School is a public school and is also known for high academics. The biology program is not accessible to Miguel and other students because it is not wheelchair accessible. It is also a course that is needed for most colleges. The biology class was replaced with another science class, but that does not meet the requirements for college. Continuing on with Section 3, as far as what do I need to know about the people, I need to know if there have been issues prior to this one with students being denied access to classrooms. I also need to know if Dr. Harvey, the superintendent, is aware of this issue. Also, was the biology teacher made aware that Miguel would not be returning to the classroom because it was not wheelchair accessible? And also, is Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez willing to work with me and the school to come to an agreement that puts Miguel's needs first? Once again, continuing on with Section 3, synthesizing the facts as far as what do I need to know about the place and program. I need to know if there are other open classrooms that the biology course could move to that is more wheelchair accessible. Is there any way to make the biology classroom wheelchair accessible within a time frame that Miguel would be able to return to the classroom? Will the rest of the building be brought up to code soon? How can we get funding to ensure all areas of the building are accessible to all students? As for the program, is there a 504 in place for Miguel? If not, was it asked for without my knowledge? What further accommodations for Miguel are needed? What can we do about the biology course to make it accessible for Miguel and future students who use a wheelchair? And was there communication prior to the change of the schedule for Miguel between the counselor and the principal? If not, what can I do or set in place to make sure that this does not happen in the future? Section 5, options and possible consequences. Some of the options that I have is to not act upon it at all and stay in agreement with Ms. Gussman's decision on the schedule change. I could also move the biology classroom to another classroom that is wheelchair accessible. I could suggest to Miguel on waiting to take the biology course until the current classroom is wheelchair accessible. We could also potentially utilize an online learning opportunity to fulfill Miguel's need for biology. This would use resources effectively if provided by the school. We could also look into developing a 504 plan for Miguel and list all accommodations needed. We could also begin looking at working with an architect and funding options to get the rest of the building under code. Some of the consequences of those options would be a lawsuit if Miguel is not given access to the biology course that he was taken out of, an upset biology teacher potentially if she or he is asked to move classrooms, and we could also be looking at hurting the reputation, climate, and culture of the school just based upon Miguel's needs and how they are not being met at this time. For Section 6, weighing the pros and cons of the previous options stated, some of the pros would be that moving a classroom will allow Miguel access to the biology course he was taken out of. Suggesting that Miguel waits until the classroom is wheelchair accessible allows the school time to get the classroom under code. Opening the door to an online option for Miguel would also give time for the rest of the construction to take place, and Miguel would still be able to fulfill his requirement for college. Also, working with the architects to move forward with construction would mean the school would be up to state and federal codes and would make sure academic success is provided to every present and future student. Also, a pro of developing a 504 plan for Miguel would have everything lined out and in writing of what his accommodations would be. Some of the cons would be that if Ms. Gussman's decision is followed through, then we could be looking at a lawsuit. Moving a classroom in the middle of the year is a lot of work for a teacher. Also, completing the course online could mean cost for the school, and it also keep Miguel from completing the course with his peers. Also, construction on the building will take time and would not be an immediate fix for Miguel and taking the biology course. Section 7, best option. At this time, it is best the biology classroom is moved to a location that is accessible to all students, including Miguel. This would give an appropriate education to Miguel and fulfill the college requirement. This would also meet the terms of ADA, Section 504, IDEA, and FAPE. By doing this as a principal, I'm advocating for equitable access to educational resources and opportunities that support the educational success and well-being of each student. This will be done by cultivating equitable use of educational resources and opportunities through procedures, guidelines, norms, and values. It is also the best option to meet with the biology teacher to let her know of the move and offer assistance in any way. Continuing on, it is also best to meet with the counselor to let her know of my decision and what should be done in the future in order to not infringe upon a student's rights. It's also best to meet with all stakeholders, those including Dr. Harvey, the Hernandez family, Mr. Howard Carey, the biology teacher, and counselor to collaborate to solve this issue and to let them know the plan moving forward regarding Miguel. Lastly, it's the best option to write a 504 plan that will make sure all terms are met and Miguel's rights are not infringed upon. Section 8, Implementation of IDEA. After evaluating multiple sources of inequality and bias in the allocation of educational resources and opportunities, I will use my comprehensive understanding and capacity to undertake and implement this work within a school setting by step number 1, conclude the current meeting by letting everyone know that is present that I will look into this matter and devise a plan moving forward. I will communicate with Dr. Harvey the situation and the plan moving forward. I will make sure to stay in contact with him throughout this whole process. Following talking to Dr. Harvey, I will meet with Ms. Gussman privately to look at how things are communicated and her thoughts on this matter. I will make sure to discuss and work out a system to be put in place for the future so that communication between us is strong. Step number 4, I will meet with all staff members and administration involved to collaborate on the plan moving forward of moving the biology classroom. Step number 5, I will meet with the biology teacher separately about moving the classroom and offer assistance in any way. I will also explain to her the situation and hope she or he is understanding. Number 6, I will arrange a meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez, Mr. Carey, Ms. Gussman, and Dr. Harvey to discuss the changes regarding Miguel. Step number 7, at the meeting, I will plan to discuss the proposed changes. This includes moving the classroom so Miguel is not discriminated and is college ready. We will also begin writing the 504 plan for Miguel. I will make sure to mention that when this will be done and how it will look moving forward. Step number 8, after parents and Miguel agree about being moved back into biology, I will have Ms. Gussman change Miguel's schedule back. Step number 9, I will present to the staff information on compliance with ADA, IDA, and FAPE at the next staff meeting to communicate the importance of not infringing upon students' rights. Step number 10, I will begin discussion initial meetings to discuss getting the rest of the building up to code through the reconstruction project. And finally, I will keep Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez in the loop about all things and reassure them that Nottingham High School is going to make sure that Miguel's rights are not infringed upon in the future. All in all, I think that through these steps and my idea that Miguel will be able to have a successful school and education time at Nottingham High School. Thank you.